The first time Agnes heard the woman scream, she almost dropped the tray in her hand. It was close to midnight. The whole mansion had gone quiet in that strange way rich houses do. The air conditioner in the hallway hummed softly. A wall clock somewhere downstairs ticked like it was counting down to something bad. Outside, Ikeja was still awake in the distance, cars, horns, a barking dog, but inside Solomon's mansion, everything felt sealed. Still, heavy. Then the cry came again. "Help me!" Agnes froze. She was standing in the long upstairs hallway, barefoot, with a glass jug of water balanced against her hip. The hallway lights were dimmed, gold frames hung on cream walls. The floor beneath her was so shiny it reflected her feet. On any other night, it would have looked beautiful, but not then. Or because the voice was coming from the far end of the corridor, the forbidden side. Agnes turned slowly, her heart beating hard in her throat. At the end of that hallway was a dark corner with one old wooden door. It was always shut, always locked. And from the first day Agnes came to work in the mansion, Solomon had warned her about it in a voice that made her skin go cold. "Never go near that side," he had said. "Not don't clean it. Not don't touch anything there. Never go near it." At the time, Agnes had nodded quickly and looked down. The way poor people often did when rich men spoke too sharply. She needed the job. She had not come to ask questions. But now the cry came again. Longer this time. Not the sound of a cat. Not the wind. Not a bad dream. A woman. A real woman. Agnes stood in the hallway and felt the small hairs on her arms rise. She wanted to run back to her room. She wanted to pretend she heard nothing. She wanted to tell herself there was an explanation. Maybe it was the television in one of the guest rooms. Maybe it was the neighbor's house. Maybe it was only her mind playing tricks because she had been tired. But deep down she knew the truth. Someone was crying in that house. And the cry was full of pain. "Please." The word cracked in the darkness. Agnes backed away so fast that water splashed from the jug onto her hand. She turned and hurried to her little room behind the laundry area, shut the door and leaned against it, breathing hard. "No, no, no," she whispered to herself. "Agnes, oh, don't put your head inside trouble." She set the jug down on the floor and sat on the edge of her narrow bed. Her room was small, hardly bigger than a store. One metal bed. One standing fan that made more noise than breeze. One plastic bucket in the corner. Her two dresses hanging from a nail in the wall. She had been in the mansion for only 1 month, yet it already felt like the kind of place that watched people. Agnes wiped her face with the edge of her wrapper. She thought of home. Not this giant mansion in Ikeja, with its chandeliers and polished stairs and expensive silence. Home was a small one-room apartment in Ikeja where her mother still lived with Agnes's younger brother, Toby. Their rent was late again. Toby had been sent home from school twice because they had not paid his fees. And her mother sold roasted corn by the roadside when her chest was strong enough, but most days the cough held her down. That job at Solomon's mansion was the first good money Agnes had ever touched. She could not lose it. She told herself to sleep. She lay down, closed her eyes, opened them again. The cry would not leave her ears. 1 month ago, when she first came to the mansion, Solomon had interviewed her himself in the downstairs sitting room. He was a tall man in his mid-40s, dark-skinned, neat, always smelling of perfume and something else. Something too sweet, like flowers left too long in the sun. He wore white caftans almost every evening and spoke calmly when visitors were around. Staff called him Sir with respect, but nobody ever relaxed near him. Even the guard lowered his voice when Solomon passed. For that first day, Agnes had noticed there were no family pictures in the mansion. No children running around. No women's shoes by the staircase. No life. The place looked full, yet empty. When she asked one of the kitchen staff, a woman named Bose, whether Solomon had children, Bose had only shrugged and said, "Madam died." "How?" Agnes had asked quietly. "Childbirth," Bose answered, then looked over her shoulder before adding, "3 months ago." That answer had bothered Agnes ever since, because sometimes, late at night, Agnes would hear footsteps upstairs when nobody should be awake. Sometimes she would smell incense in the hallway, strong and bitter, even though no one burned incense in the rooms she cleaned, and twice she had heard what sounded like a woman sobbing. The first time, she told herself it was grief living in the walls. The second time, she was not so sure. Now this third time, no. This time the voice had spoken. Agnes sat up on the bed again. Her throat felt dry. She reached for the bottle of water by her pillow and drank too quickly. Her hand was shaking. Then she heard footsteps outside, slow, careful. Her breath caught. She stood up, tiptoed to the door, and pressed one eye to the gap. A shadow moved across the corridor. Agnes's heart slammed hard. For one terrible second, she thought it was Solomon coming to ask what she had heard. But then the shadow passed. A servant, maybe going to the toilet, maybe not. Still, Agnes did not move until the footsteps faded. The next morning she tried to act normal. The mansion looked harmless again in daylight. Sunlight poured through tall windows. The flowers in the compound were bright. A gardener watered hedges near the gate. In the kitchen, Bose was frying a kara and humming as if nothing evil had ever happened in that house. Agnes almost convinced herself it had all been a nightmare. Almost. Then Solomon walked in. He wore a clean white caftan and a red cap. His shoes shone. His face looked calm, but his eyes were restless, like he had not slept. He stood by the kitchen entrance and scanned the room. When his gaze landed on Agnes, he paused. "You," he said. Agnes straightened at once. "Yes, sir." "Did you work upstairs last night?" Her stomach dropped. "No, sir," she lied. He kept looking at her, not blinking, not smiling. The frying akara crackled in the background. Bose stopped humming. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Solomon nodded once. "Good," he said. "I do not like people wandering where they should not." Agnes lowered her eyes. "Yes, sir." He turned and left. Only after he was gone did Agnes realize her back was wet with sweat. That afternoon, while cleaning the guest bathroom upstairs, she found something that made her blood run cold. It was a woman's hairpin, small, silver, bent at one end. It was lying close to the wall near the forbidden side of the hallway. Agnes picked it up slowly. This was not the kind of thing that could have been there for years. It was not dusty. It looked recent. Used, dropped. She stared at it for a long time. Then from far down the corridor came a sound so faint she almost missed it. A knock. 1, 2, 3. Not from outside, from behind the locked door. Agnes's fingers tightened around the hairpin. Her mouth went dry. And in that moment, with the bright afternoon sun pouring into the hallway and the whole mansion pretending to be normal, Agnes knew one terrible thing for sure. There was someone alive behind that door, and whoever it was had just heard her too. That night, Agnes did not sleep. She lay on her bed, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling as the fan above her clicked and turned slowly. Every small sound in the mansion felt louder than usual, the hum of electricity, the faint movement of curtains, even the distant barking of dogs outside the compound. But the sound she was waiting for came again, right on time. "Help me." Agnes sat up immediately. Her heart was already racing, as if it had been expecting this moment. This time the voice was clearer. Not just a cry, words, real words, and there was something else too. A weakness in it. Like the person speaking had been crying for too long, like her strength was almost gone. Agnes swung her legs off the bed and stood up. She didn't even realize when she had made the decision. Her feet moved before her mind could stop her. Step by step, she walked to the door of her room. Paused, listened. Silence. She opened it slowly. The hallway outside was darker than before. Only one wall light was on, casting long shadows that stretched across the floor. The kind of shadows that made everything look taller, deeper, more dangerous. Agnes stepped out. Her bare feet made no sound against the polished floor. "Help me." The voice came again, from the same place, the forbidden side. Agnes swallowed hard. She remembered Solomon's face that morning, the way his eyes had stayed on her just a second too long, the way his voice had dropped when he said, "I do not like people wandering where they should not." It didn't feel like a warning anymore. It felt like a threat. Agnes stopped halfway down the hallway. "What if I'm wrong?" she whispered to herself. "What if this is something I should not see?" But then the voice came again. We, the woman coughed. A weak, painful sound. Are dying here. Agnes froze. We, not I, we. Her chest tightened. There was more than one person. Or, there had been. Agnes looked toward the door. Her mind raced. She thought of her mother coughing at home, too weak to stand some days. She thought of her little brother, hungry but trying not to complain. She thought of how it felt to be helpless, to wait for someone to help and no one comes. Her eyes filled with tears. No, she whispered, I can't ignore this. She turned, walked faster now. Each step felt heavier than the last, closer, closer, until she was standing in front of the door. The air there felt different, colder, thicker. There was a faint smell, like burnt oil mixed with something sweet and rotten at the same time. It made her nose wrinkle. Agnes stared at the door. It was old, dark wood, strong, and nailed onto it, right at eye level, was a small metal plate with one word scratched into it. Out of bound. Not even spelled correctly. That alone sent a chill through her body. Agnes lifted her hand slowly. Her fingers hovered just above the surface. Then, tap, she knocked. Silence. And her heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. Then, from inside, a sudden movement, a dragging sound, and a weak voice shaking with fear and hope at the same time. Please, please, is someone there? Agnes gasped softly. Her hand flew to her mouth. Yes, she whispered quickly, leaning closer to the door. Yes, I'm here. I'm here. There was a sharp intake of breath from inside, then crying. Soft at first, then louder. Oh God. Oh God. Please don't go. Please don't go. Agnes felt her throat tighten. I won't, she said. I won't go. Who are you? A pause, as if the woman inside was gathering the little strength she had left. My name, she struggled. My name is Elizabeth. Agnes froze. The name hit her like a slap. Elizabeth, Solomon's wife, the one that was supposed to be dead. Agnes stepped back slightly, her head spinning. No, she whispered. That's not possible. Inside the room, the crying turned desperate. He told you I'm dead, didn't he? Elizabeth said weakly. Agnes didn't answer, because that was exactly what Solomon had said. He locked me here, Elizabeth continued, her voice breaking. He wants money, ritual. Please, please help me. Agnes's knees felt weak. This was not just something strange anymore. This was something evil, real evil. Before she could say anything else, a loud sound echoed from the far end of the hallway, footsteps, heavy, fast, coming toward her. Agnes's head snapped up, her heart jumped into her throat. She didn't need to guess who it was. Only one person walked like that in the house. Solomon. Who is there? His voice rang out sharply. Agnes panicked. I'll come back, she whispered quickly to the door. I promise, don't make a sound. No, please, Elizabeth cried softly. Agnes didn't wait. She turned and ran, not loud, not careless, but fast enough. Her feet barely touched the ground as she rushed back toward her room. The footsteps behind her grew louder, closer, closer. She reached her door, slipped inside, shut it gently, and jumped onto her bed, pulling the thin sheet over her body just as the footsteps stopped outside. Silence. Then, a knock, 3 slow, heavy knocks. Agnes's breath stopped. Agnes. His voice, right outside her door. Her heart pounded so loudly she was sure he could hear it. Yes, sir, she managed to say, forcing her voice to sound sleepy. Open the door. Agnes swallowed hard. Her hand trembled as she got up and walked toward the door. Or 1 step, 2, 3. She opened it. Solomon stood there. His face looked calm, too calm. But his eyes were burning. Were you walking around just now? He asked quietly. Agnes shook her head quickly. No, sir, I've been sleeping. He stared at her, long, too long. Then his gaze moved past her, into her room, scanning everything, the bed, the floor, the corner, looking for something, anything. Finally, he stepped back. Good, he said slowly. Because some places in this house... He paused, then leaned closer, so close she could smell that strange sweet scent again. Are not meant for people like you. Agnes felt her stomach twist. People like you? He straightened and turned to leave, but before he walked away, he stopped and added, "And Agnes?" She looked up. If you ever hear anything strange at night." He smiled, a small, cold smile. "Pray about it. Don't investigate it." Then he walked away. Agnes stood there, frozen, watching his back disappear into the darkness. Her hands were shaking, her legs felt weak, but her eyes slowly hardened. Because now she knew the truth. Elizabeth was alive, locked inside that room, and if she did nothing, Elizabeth would die. Agnes closed her door gently, leaned against it, and whispered to herself, "Tomorrow night." She took a deep breath. "I'm breaking that door." Then suddenly, from somewhere far in the house, a loud scream echoed. Not from Elizabeth's room, from somewhere else entirely. Agnes's eyes widened in fear, because that scream did not sound weak at all. The scream didn't stop immediately, and it tore through the mansion like something alive. Agnes stood frozen in her room, her back pressed against the door, her breath caught halfway in her chest. That was not Elizabeth. This one was stronger, angrier. And for a moment, it sounded like it came from downstairs. Then, silence. Just like that, as if the house swallowed the sound. Agnes slowly pushed herself off the door and stepped toward her window. She moved the curtain slightly and looked out into the compound. The security lights were still on. The gate stood tall and quiet. The guard's small shed had a faint bulb glowing inside. Everything looked normal. Too normal. Agnes turned back into her room. Her mind was racing now. "We are dying here." Elizabeth's words echoed again. "We, not I." Agnes clenched her fists. There was something bigger in that house. In something hidden, and whatever Solomon was doing, it wasn't just one woman. A cold chill ran down her spine, but then something else rose inside her. Anger. Not loud, not wild. Just steady. Because suddenly, this wasn't just about fear anymore. It was about choice. Agnes walked slowly to her bed and sat down. She placed both hands on her knees and stared at the floor. "If I keep quiet," she whispered. She pictured Elizabeth's weak voice, her trembling breath, her broken words. "She will die." Agnes closed her eyes. She saw her mother again, coughing, weak, alone. She opened her eyes. "No," she said quietly, "not tonight." She stood up. Her movement was calm now, decided. She walked to the small wooden box under her bed and opened it. Inside were her few belongings: 2 wrappers, a small purse, a cheap phone, and something else, a spare key, the main gate key. Bose had given it to her 2 weeks ago when Agnes had been asked to open the gate early one morning. "Keep it safe," Bose had said, "but don't misuse it." Agnes picked it up and held it tightly. Then she checked her phone. 12:17 a.m. She inhaled slowly. 1 o'clock, she whispered. She needed to wait until the house was deep asleep, wait until even the walls stopped listening. Time moved slowly, painfully slowly. Every minute felt like 10. Agnes lay on her bed, eyes open, watching the clock on her phone. 12:34 a.m., 12:49 a.m., 12:57 a.m. She sat up. Her heart started to beat faster again. This was it. 12:59 a.m. She stood. 1 a.m. Agnes moved. Quiet, careful, controlled. She slipped on her slippers and tied her wrapper tightly around her waist. And then she opened her door gently and stepped into the hallway. The mansion was silent. Even quieter than before, the kind of silence that felt like a warning. Agnes didn't hesitate. She walked straight toward the staircase. Downstairs first. Her plan was already clear in her mind. She reached the storeroom near the kitchen and opened it slowly. Inside, cleaning tools leaned against the wall, buckets, mops, old brooms. And at the far corner, a digger, heavy, iron, rough. Agnes stared at it. Her throat tightened slightly. Once she picked that up, there was no turning back. She stepped forward, grabbed it. The weight almost pulled her arm down. She adjusted her grip, tightened her jaw, and turned. The staircase creaked softly under her steps as she climbed back upstairs. Each step felt louder than it should. Each movement felt watched, but she didn't stop. She reached the top. turned, and walked straight to the forbidden side. The air grew colder again. That smell returned, burnt oil, rot, something sweet. Agnes tightened her grip on the digger. She reached the door, out of bound. The metal plate caught the dim light. Agnes stood in front of it, her chest rising, falling. She leaned closer. "Elizabeth," she whispered. For a second there was nothing, then a weak voice. "Agnes." Agnes felt something tighten in her chest. "I'm here," she said softly. "I told you I'll come back." A broken sob came from inside. I thought you wouldn't." Agnes swallowed. "I'm taking you out of here." Silence, then a trembling voice. "Please, hurry." Agnes stepped back, lifted the digger. Her hand shook slightly, not from weakness, from what she was about to do. "This will be loud," she whispered quickly. "Don't be afraid." Elizabeth didn't answer. Maybe she was too weak. Maybe she was praying. Agnes took a deep breath. Then, bam! The digger slammed into the door. The sound exploded through the hallway. Agnes froze for half a second. Listened. Nothing. She raised it again. Bam! The wood cracked slightly. Dust fell. Her arms burned from the impact. But she didn't stop. Bam! 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 Each hit louder than the last. Each hit breaking more than wood. Breaking fear. Breaking silence. Breaking whatever evil had been hidden there. Inside, Elizabeth cried weakly. Outside, the mansion began to wake. Somewhere downstairs, something fell. A door opened. Footsteps. Agnes didn't stop. Come on," she muttered. Crack! The door split. A line opened. Agnes dropped the digger for a second and kicked hard. Boom! The door burst open, and what she saw made her breath disappear. The room was dark, filled with thick smoke, candles, different colors, red, black, white, all lit, burning, arranged in strange circles on the floor. The walls were stained, symbols scratched into them. The smell was stronger here, suffocating, and in the middle of it, Elizabeth, on the floor, barely covered in a white gown stained with mud and dirt. Her hair was scattered wildly around her face. Her body looked thin, too thin. Her lips dry. Her eyes tired, but alive. Agnes dropped the digger completely. Her chest tightened. "Oh my God!" Elizabeth tried to move, failed. "Please," she whispered. Agnes rushed forward immediately. She knelt beside her. "You're okay. You're okay," she said quickly, even though it wasn't true. Elizabeth grabbed her weakly. He will come." As if on cue, a loud sound echoed from the hallway. Footsteps, fast, heavy, coming straight toward them. Agnes's head snapped toward the door. Her heart slammed hard. Too late. He was already coming. Elizabeth's grip tightened weakly. "He will kill you," she whispered. Agnes looked back at her just for 1 second, and in that second, she made her choice. She stood up, bent down, lifted Elizabeth onto her back. Elizabeth cried softly from the pain. Agnes adjusted her hold, tightened her grip, turned toward the door, and froze, because standing there, blocking the exit, was Solomon. His white caftan now slightly loose, his red cap tilted, but his face was no longer calm. It was full of rage, pure, burning, dangerous rage, and his eyes locked onto Agnes, then slowly shifted to Elizabeth on her back. And when he spoke, his voice was low, cold, deadly. "You," he took 1 step forward, "have just made the biggest mistake of your life." Agnes's heart pounded, her legs trembled, but she didn't move. Because now there was no going back, and Solomon was already walking toward them. For a second, nobody moved. Not Agnes, not Solomon, not even Elizabeth, whose weak breath brushed against Agnes's neck. The hallway felt frozen in time. Then Solomon took another step forward. Slow, controlled, dangerous. Agnes's heart slammed against her chest, so hard it almost hurt. Her legs felt like they might give way under the weight of Elizabeth on her back. But she held on, tight. Because if she dropped her now, it was over. You think you can take her?" Solomon said quietly. His voice didn't rise. That made it worse. "You think you can walk out of this house with what belongs to me?" Agnes swallowed hard. What belongs to me? Not my wife, not a human being. Something inside Agnes snapped. She is not your property, Agnes said, her voice shaking, but firm. Solomon stopped walking, just for a second, as if he didn't expect her to speak back. Then slowly, a smile spread across his face. Cold, mocking. Ah, he said softly. So the janitor has a mouth. Agnes didn't reply. Her eyes moved. Quick, left, right, measuring the distance from where she stood to the staircase, from the staircase to the front door, from the front door to freedom. Her breath grew heavier. Elizabeth shifted slightly on her back and winced in pain. Agnes, she whispered weakly. Please. Agnes tightened her grip. I've got you, she said. Then suddenly, Solomon moved, fast, too fast. Agnes didn't think. She reacted. She turned and ran. Her feet hit the ground hard as she rushed past the doorway, her heart racing wildly. Behind her, "Stop her!" Solomon shouted. His voice exploded through the mansion. Doors slammed open downstairs. Voices, movement. Agnes didn't look back. She couldn't. Because now, it wasn't just Solomon, it was everyone. She reached the staircase, jumped down the first few steps, almost slipped, caught herself, kept running. Elizabeth's weight dragged on her shoulders, but she didn't slow down. Her lungs burned, her legs screamed, but fear pushed her forward. Agnes, Elizabeth whispered faintly. I can't. You can, Agnes said through her breath. Just hold on. Behind her, footsteps, multiple, heavy, fast. They were coming. Agnes reached the ground floor, turned sharply, ran through the living room. The chandeliers above her sparkled like nothing was wrong. The expensive furniture sat quietly, as if this house didn't hold secrets, as if this house wasn't evil. She ran past everything, straight toward the main door. Her hand reached it, pulled, locked. Her heart dropped. No, no, no. Her fingers shook as she fumbled with the handle, locked, from inside. Agnes's chest tightened. Think, think. Then, the key. Her hand flew to her wrapper. Yes, the spare key. She pulled it out, dropped it. Damn. She bent quickly, picked it up, shoved it into the lock, twisted, click. The door opened. Fresh night air rushed in. Agnes didn't stop. She ran outside. And the compound lights hit her eyes. The gate stood ahead. The guard's small shed was quiet, too quiet. Agnes didn't slow down. She ran straight toward it. Open the gate, she shouted. No answer. Open the gate. Still nothing. She reached the shed. Looked inside. The guard was asleep, deep, unmoving, as if drugged. Agnes felt fear twist in her stomach. This was planned, everything, but she didn't stop. She turned, ran to the gate. Her hands shook as she searched for the lock. Behind her, the main door burst open. Solomon stepped out. His face twisted with rage. Agnes, he roared. She didn't look back. She found the lock. Her fingers worked fast. Key in. Turn. Nothing. Stuck. No. No. Her breath came faster. Elizabeth's weight shifted again. Agnes adjusted, tried again, turn, click. It opened. She pushed the gate. Heavy. I'm too heavy. Move, she whispered desperately. Behind her, footsteps, close, very close. Agnes pushed harder. The gate moved, slowly. Then, wide enough. She slipped through, turned, pulled the gate shut, locked it. Just as Solomon reached it, he slammed his hand against the metal. Hard, the sound rang out into the night. Agnes stumbled back, breathing hard, shaking. But she was outside, free. Then, headlights flashed, a car, right in front of the gate. Agnes ran toward it. The taxi driver opened the back door quickly. Madam, quick. Agnes didn't waste time. She gently lowered Elizabeth into the seat. Elizabeth cried softly as her body touched the leather. Agnes jumped in beside her. Go, she shouted. The driver didn't ask questions. He started the engine, pressed the accelerator, the car shot forward. Behind them. The gate opened. Solomon burst out, running, chasing. But the car was already moving fast, too fast. Agnes turned and looked back, her heart still pounding. Solomon stood in the road, breathing hard, watching them leave. Then he hit his hand against the wall beside him, hard, once, twice, 3 times. Then he pulled out his phone, calling someone. Agnes's stomach tightened. "They're coming," she whispered. The driver glanced at her through the mirror. "Where are we going?" Agnes didn't hesitate. "Police station," she said. The driver nodded and pressed harder on the accelerator. The car sped through the quiet Ikeja streets. Streetlights passed quickly. Left, right, turn, straight. Agnes held Elizabeth's hand. It was cold, too cold. "Stay with me," she whispered. "Stay with me." Elizabeth's eyes opened slightly. Tears rolled down her face. "You came," she whispered. Agnes shook her head gently. "I should have come earlier." Elizabeth tried to smile, but couldn't. Then suddenly, a car appeared behind them, fast, too fast. The driver checked the mirror. "Madam." Agnes turned, her heart dropped. Headlights, close, following. "They've found us," she whispered. The driver tightened his grip on the wheel. "What do I do?" Agnes's eyes hardened. "Don't stop," she said. The car behind them sped closer, closing the gap. The road ahead stretched long and empty. No traffic, no help, just speed, just danger. The driver pressed harder. The engine roared. Agnes held Elizabeth tighter, her heart pounding louder than ever. Because now, they weren't just escaping, they were being hunted. And the car behind them was gaining fast. Oh, the car behind them was getting closer. Too close. Agnes could see the headlights clearly now in the back window. Bright, aggressive, chasing them like something that would not stop until it caught them. "Faster," she shouted. "I'm trying," the driver replied, his voice tight with fear. The engine roared as he pushed harder. The quiet Ikeja road turned into a blur of lights and shadows. Buildings passed, streetlights flashed across Agnes's face. Her heart beat so loud it felt like it might burst out of her chest. Elizabeth's hand was still in hers, cold, weak, barely holding on. "Stay with me," Agnes whispered again, her voice softer now, almost like she was speaking to herself. "We're almost there. Just stay." Behind them, the chasing car swerved suddenly, came closer, too close. The driver cursed under his breath. "They're trying to block us." Agnes's mind raced. Think, think, think. Then she saw it, up ahead, a small building, faded sign, a flickering light, but clear enough, police station. "Straight there," she shouted, pointing. The driver nodded and turned sharply into the compound. The tires screeched. The car stopped hard, before the engine even died. Agnes opened the door. "Help! Help!" she screamed. 2 policemen sitting outside jumped up immediately. "What is happening?" one of them asked. Agnes didn't waste time. She pointed at Elizabeth. "They locked her. They were killing her. Please, help her." The officers rushed forward. One opened the car door fully. The other called inside. "Bring stretcher, quick." Behind them, the chasing car slowed, stopped at the entrance. For a moment, it just stayed there, watching. And then it reversed and sped away into the night. Agnes stood there, breathing hard, watching it disappear. Her body trembled. Not from cold, from everything, everything that had just happened. A hand touched her shoulder. She turned. A female officer stood there, her face serious but kind. "You're safe now," she said gently. Agnes's lips trembled. For the first time since everything began, she felt it. Relief. That night moved quickly after that. Everything happened in pieces, blurred but real. Elizabeth was rushed into an ambulance, taken straight to the hospital. Agnes sat in the police station, wrapped in a thin blanket someone gave her. Her hands still shook as she gave her statement. Every word felt heavy. Every detail felt unbelievable. But she said everything. The room, the candles, the smell, the door, the voice, the rescue. She didn't leave anything out, because she knew, if she did, he might walk free. Morning came slowly. The sky turned pale. The city woke up. But inside Solomon's mansion, everything was about to end. Solomon stood in his room, packing a small bag. His hands moved fast, too fast. He kept glancing at the door, at the window, at his phone. He knew. He knew the truth was already outside. He knew he had been seen, exposed. He zipped the bag, picked it up, walked toward the door, opened it, and froze. Police officers stood there, 4 of them, armed, silent, waiting. "Mr. Solomon," one of them said firmly, "you are under arrest." For the first time, Solomon's face lost its control. "You have no proof," he said quickly. "This is nonsense." "Save it," the officer replied. "You can explain in court." They stepped forward, took him, handcuffed him, and led him out. Just like that, the powerful man, the feared man. The man who thought no one would ever see, now seen. Days passed, slow, heavy, important. Elizabeth stayed in the hospital. She was weak, very weak, but alive. And every day, she grew a little stronger. Agnes visited her often, sat beside her, held her hand. Sometimes they talked, sometimes they didn't. Sometimes silence said everything. Then came the court day. The courtroom was full. People filled every seat. Whispers moved through the air. Journalists, observers, strangers, everyone wanted to see, to hear, to know. Solomon stood in the defendant's box, clean, calm, trying to look untouchable. But his eyes told a different story. Agnes sat quietly in the witness area. Her hands rested on her lap, still. But inside, her heart moved like a storm. Then her name was called. She stood, walked forward, step by step, and faced the courtroom. Her voice was not loud, but it was clear. She told the story, everything, the cries, the door, the warning, the night, the rescue. Then she brought out her phone. "I recorded it," she said. The courtroom fell silent. The video played. On the screen, clear, undeniable, Elizabeth on the floor, the candles, the smell, the truth. Gasps filled the room. Some people covered their mouths, others shook their heads. Solomon didn't look at the screen. He stared straight ahead, still pretending. Then Elizabeth spoke. Her voice was weak, but strong enough. She told her story, how she had not died, how she had been locked away, how she had been used, how she had begged, how she had almost lost hope. Until Agnes came. Tears filled the courtroom, real tears, not fake, not forced. Solomon still denied everything. "I did nothing," he said, but his words felt empty now. Because truth was louder. The judge, a middle-aged woman with calm eyes, looked at everything, listened, watched, understood. Then finally, she spoke, her voice steady, firm. "Solomon," she paused, "you are guilty." Silence. "You are sentenced to life imprisonment." A deep breath moved through the room. "And 70% of your wealth," she looked at Elizabeth, "will be transferred to Elizabeth." A louder reaction this time. Shock, relief, justice. Elizabeth broke down in tears. Agnes rushed to her, held her tightly. They cried together. Not from pain this time, from release, from survival. Even from something that felt like a second life. Weeks passed, then months. Life changed, slowly, but surely. Elizabeth recovered fully. Her strength returned, her smile returned, her life returned. And Agnes's life changed too. Elizabeth didn't forget, could never forget. She brought Agnes close, not as a servant, as a partner. Together they started a cotton export business, small at first, then bigger, then bigger. Years passed. Agnes moved from a small room in Ikeja to her own house. Then another, then another. Her mother got better treatment. Her brother went back to school. Life shifted. One evening, years later, Agnes stood on the balcony of her home. The sun was setting, soft, warm, peaceful. She looked out at the city, quiet for once, and she smiled. Not a loud smile, not proud, just deep. Because she knew something. Something simple, something real. She didn't just save Elizabeth that night, she saved herself too. Elizabeth survived because hope stayed alive, even when her body was weak, and sometimes all it takes is one person to hear a cry and decide, "I will not ignore this." But what Agnes didn't know yet was that not every secret in that mansion had been uncovered, and some things don't stay buried forever. If you like this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.